Hello and welcome back to Buggleskelly Station, and this is a very special video as I have a big announcement for all Will Hay fans and model railway fans in general. If you've been following my Facebook page and Twitter, you'll know that I've been working on a 3D model of Buggleskelly Station, the dilapidated country halt from my favourite film, Oh Mr. Porter, as you can see in the colorised picture next to me. A few years ago I scratch built Buggleskelly Station in wood, plasticard and card, and it's featured in my videos many times. I've also been asked more times than I can remember if I could make these to order. Now, this took me a good couple of weeks to make, and scratch building to order is not really something I'd have the time or patience to do, so I thought maybe I could 3D print a building instead. I began by working through stills from the film and behind the scenes photos to draw out a 3D design using Tinkercad. This process took a good couple of weeks as I needed to tweak the design several times, and the research process also showed me how out of proportion I'd made the original model, so this was a good opportunity to correct these mistakes and make something more accurate to the film. Once I was happy with the design, I printed the building on my Anycubic Photon Ultra, which is a DLP resin 3D printer. This is capable of much finer detail than my older Anycubic Photon printer, which is the printer that I made my Gladstone model on. As this model's much larger than the build plate, it's printed in 3 sections, but I've designed it in such a way that I could print the roof in the same section as the main building parts. I also had to revise the design several times as each print was completed, so that I ended up with something that worked. The resin was then washed in the wash and cure machine, supports were removed and each section cured under a UV light to harden. Now it can be treated like any plastic model. I'm offering these models for sale both unpainted and hand painted, so here's my basic guide to painting if you choose to do it yourself. I begin with a primer base coat, which is sprayed on. The colour doesn't really matter for this, but I had dark red Rust-Oleum primer to hand, so I used this, but grey would have been fine. This is a mix of Humbrol and Vallejo, and I start with a drab olive brown to cover all of the woodwork. This doesn't need to be neat, in fact for Buggleskelly the messier the better. And then next I add a concrete grey to the end wall section. Using a slightly darker brown I pick out some planks. Again, this doesn't need to be neat, as the final touches will come out with the wash and highlighting later. I've added a watered down green moss colour to represent damp and mould at the base of the building, and I add a stone grey to the chimney. The paints are constantly mixed together. This helps me give a more blended tone, which works fine when there's no defined block colours. I even use the same brush between tones. Next is the roof and the rusty corrugated iron.
You're wasting your time!
I add a slightly diluted brown wash all over the roof, and as you can see here, some tiles are picked out individually in brown and grey shades. The building isn't one piece at the moment. I found it much easier to paint in sections, as you get an edge to hold on to, so it doesn't matter if that gets touched while you're painting it. Along the base of the wood, I add some dark green and yellow ochre, which are just cheap Wilko paints, but they're ideal for this job because they wipe away a lot easier than the branded acrylics do. and I take the excess away with some tissue. This layer is quite diluted, as you can see. Then comes the best bit, the black wash. This is also the scariest bit, as it can ruin your hard work if you apply the wash too thick. It wants to be about 1 part paint to 10 parts water, but test it on some scrap plastic if you're unsure. Any buildings near a steam railway would of course be very dirty with soot and grime, and Buggleskelly's even more so than most. Therefore I cover every part of the model with this wash and add a second coat near the chimney. Once this is dried, which only takes a few minutes, I glue the 3 sections together using plastic cement, and they may need holding together using an elastic band for a little while too. Once dry, I dry brush some white acrylic onto the model. Basically this means you just get most of the paint off the brush, so there's barely anything on there. If you do add too much, just use a damp cloth to take some away before it dries. But this step really highlights the detail, and it goes to show the quality that the 3D printer can get. I've also included some posters with the model, which they'll need to be cut out and glued into place using Pritt stick or some similar paper glue. This would be also a good time to add that I've created the model in N scale, as well as 00, which was considerably trickier to paint, but as a bonus I was able to print it in 1 section. Now, where would Buggleskelly be without the Nestle chocolate machine?
Hey, what are you doing to that machine?
Take a bit of chocolate.
Well, what's the idea of kicking it? What do you think the stop's for?
To blow down if the kick don't work.
To blow down the kick over.
Here, I tell you something.
What?
Telephone's ringing.
Yeah.
Again, using Tinkercad, I produced this model from reference photos. Then I 3D printed it, cured and painted it with the dark red primer, and then using a silver paint pen I picked out some of the detail. And I'll include a chocolate machine with each model, but no chocolate. And that's about it.
I want to go to Birmingham and they're taking me on to cruise. Oh, Mr. Porter, what a funny man you are.
So thank you for watching and for your support in getting the model to this stage. They're now available to purchase in 00 scale and N scale from my website. You'll see the link in the description. And as I say, they can be bought unpainted or hand painted. Both will take weeks to produce. I'm working on my own. The 3D process, it can take 24 hours for 1 model to print, plus the cleaning and the curing time. And then with painting, that takes obviously an extra evening per model, so please bear this in mind. I'm also working on some figures to join the station, and of course Harbottle's, there we go, signal box, that'll come along at some point in the future. And then when I get round to it, I'm still working on getting Gladstone, the old engine from the film, so he'll have to make an appearance too. So please feel free to add me on Twitter. Join the Will Hay Appreciation Society if you're not a member already. It's free. If you love the films, then you'll love the society. And subscribe for future updates. So thanks for watching. Bye.